listening to the Narrative Podcast with Halsey Allen. The Narrative Podcast is changing the narrative one episode at a time.
What's going on, family? Welcome to another edition of the Narrative Podcast. The Narrative Podcast is the home of original people peace, and original people reciprocity. The Narrative Podcast promotes positive reinforcement of original people and original people culture. Welcome to the Narrative Podcast. Welcome all my narrators. I'm your host, Halsey Allen. So, what's going on? Here we go again with another episode of the Narrative Podcast. Coming to you on this wonderful Wednesday is Hump Day. Weekend right around the corner. So I'm meaning to try to do as many uploads as possible during the week. I'm trying to strengthen my my reach during the weekdays because I feel we need the content more during the weekdays, if anything. So I've been trying to amplify my weekday uploads of the Narrative Podcast. I think I might be falling short this week. I'm trying to do at least 3 uploads per week. I got her done yesterday. So what I'm trying to now work on is, doing my weekend uploads in a timely manner, because lately I've been starting at broadcasting around 9ish, 10ish, and not finishing until like midnight by the time I'm done recording. So I got to get better at that. So my episodes be like Saturday, Sunday-ish. Anyway, welcome to the Narrative Podcast. For all my new listeners currently tuning in, the way I start things off before I dive into the content, I'll walk you through a quick overview of the Narrative Podcast and then dive on into the content. And the reason why I do that is just to better familiarize the listening audience with my platform and what it is I'm attempting to do in this space that I'm occupying. And then give them a broader sense of what they're listening to. So if that makes sense. But before diving on into the overview, I'm going to just take a little time to acknowledge rapper YG. He recently hosted a peace walk. So it was like 2 different gangs in LA got together for a peace walk. So they're like the Pyrus and the Bloods. And they, put it on, I believe it was Instagram, and they just kind of, a whole lot of other platforms got a hold of it, but I think it was just on his personal page or Instagram or something. Anyway, I think it should get more coverage, more press when we're doing positive things in the community. And for those that don't know, about gang culture, the original, formation of black gangs here in America was really to protect our communities from all outside threats, including the police, law enforcement, and then just other people trying to do harm to our communities. So white people coming into our communities to harm us, and anybody else that was really the reason why black gangs were formed here in America. And so it was later on with, of course, corruption and everything and infiltration, and pretty much steered all gangs into a negative space. But, I think that shit got more top billing than it did. Because, they love it when we're fighting each other. They love it when we're causing chaos and confusion. But I noticed, like, when we're trying to do something positive, that moment is, like, really fleeting. When the rappers are trying to do something positive, coming from a space of positivity, we only get a snippet of it. But when they're, engaged in criminality, when they're engaged in drama and beef, then we got part 1, part 2, and part 3, and it's back and forth on social media for, as long as they can possibly milk it. But when the rappers are doing something positive, it's just like a brief little snippet. But anyway, so I'm gonna applaud the peace walk. So fun fact, I didn't know, like, Pyru and Bloods, they're different. I didn't know that about gang culture. So it's like, it's different. So I guess there's differences in all gangs. There's like branches and sub branches, and just because they wear the same color doesn't mean necessarily they're the same. So, learn something new every day. But anyway, final note, they had a peace walk, and I feel like, the moment should have lasted longer. Anytime, when they're talking about peace or positivity, anytime a rapper from our community, an entertainer from our community is trying to, be the change and provide solutions, that should should definitely get more coverage. And so that's just only reason why I brought that up. All right, so moving on along, going to dive right on into the synopsis of the Narrator podcast, starting at the top, tippity, the name. I named my podcast the Narrator Podcast because I don't like the false narrative that the media weaves about original people and original people culture. So what I did to counter that is design this platform. And the purpose of the Narrator Podcast is just basically, to do to our people in our community the complete opposite of what the mainstream media is doing to our people in our community, and what the mainstream media is doing to our people in our culture is they're portraying us in a negative light. They're basically using propaganda and intentionally misappropriating our images and our likenesses to, better suit their agenda. So what I want to do on the Narrative Podcast is basically, build a platform where I'm just showcasing and highlighting us at our best, celebrating our accomplishments, and, creating a safe space for us, and promoting positive reinforcement, because we've been programmed and conditioned nowadays to believe, we're not supposed to congratulate each other. We're not supposed to pay each other compliments. We're not supposed to, treat each other nice, say nice things to each other. We just got to always be at odds with one another, and, argue and fight and bicker and, hurl insults. So, that's what the Narrative Podcast is all about. It's our safe space to, really celebrate our culture and be proud of who we are as a people. Which brings me to my, I think that's a perfect segue for my tagline, the Narrative Podcast, changing the narrative one episode at a time by destroying negative stereotypes about original people and original people culture. How do I destroy the negative stereotypes about our people and our culture? By providing positive frames of reference about our people and our culture. Hence the title, the Narrative Podcast. So, I also want to, it's also my mission statement to bring awareness to the listening audience, as well as to and bring the listening audience and encourage the listening audience to responsibly utilize their platforms, to share positive frames of reference about our people and our culture. So, that's what I'm doing here on this platform. I'm sharing positive frames of reference about our people and our culture. Now, the first thing you need to be aware of the Narrative Podcast is I refer to my listening audience as my narrators. And the reason why I call, my listening audience my narrators is because, that's me just acknowledging the times that we're living in. We're living in the digital information age. We all, communicate digitally. We all communicate and interact with one another online. Whether it be to socialize, whether it be to, network, whether it be to, study, like whatever you're online for, we're all online. We all use digital media for something. Whether it's just even like to sell products and stuff, everybody has their own respective reason why they're online, but, everybody's pretty much online. And pretty much every digital space online has a profile section. And so, like, whoever occupies that digital page, they list in their profile, they just tell their hobbies, their interests, what they're into, and then what views they are supportive of in their lifestyle, and any type of little thing you can know about a person in less than 100 characters, whatever they can cram in that little space. They make it try to seem as interesting as possible, and then they complement their bio section by uploading content, imagery, if you will, that is reflective of everything that they say that they're interested in. Now, on the consumer side of it, like when businesses, they use the bio section, they tell the viewer of the page about the product, and they're probably upload like their product line, whatever it is, whether it's apparel, whether it's housewares or food or whatever. It's reflective of what's in the bio section. Now, for people, their content of the bio section, like if they say they're into sports, they'll upload like sports content. If they say they're a comedian or they like funny stuff, they'll upload funny stuff. If you say you're extremely extroverted and you like outdoor type activity, going discovering new things, vacation spots and restaurants and whatever, you will upload content reflective of that. Point being, what I'm getting at is, people, whatever they utilize, their online platforms for. They, paint the best possible picture that they possibly can. They paint themselves or their product in the best possible light as possible. They tell the best possible stories of themselves or their product. They're telling or narrating their own stories. And so that's what I mean when I call my target listening audience my narrators. I mean people who are sharing, telling, or narrating, their own stories. And why that's especially important for our people, because if history hasn't taught us anything, it's taught us this. If you don't tell your own story will be told for you. So that's what we should be doing online. We should be telling our own stories about ourselves and not letting the media tell stories about us, because they're telling a story of corruption. They're telling the story of criminality. They're telling the story of degeneracy. They're telling the story of laziness. That's how they're painting us out to be. All these stereotypical, frames of reference. The first things that come to mind when you think about our people, they're directly responsible for it. So, while we can't control, what people outside of our culture think about us, how they interact with us and respond to us, based on the frames of reference that they're given by the media, we can't control that. What we can control is what type of content that we as a people are putting out. And we should be putting out the best possible content as possible. We shouldn't be, sugarcoating anything, but at the same time, we shouldn't be going out of our way to, embrace these negative stereotypes and the stigmas that the media places over us as a people by regurgitating them online. We shouldn't be regurgitating gang culture. We shouldn't be regurgitating gun violence culture. We shouldn't be regurgitating degeneracy. We should be prime examples of what it means to be a prime example. We should be normalizing normal things, because the media has taught us to normalize things that aren't normal within our community. Not having two parents in the household, that's not normal, but that's, we glorify that and romanticize that. Gender wars, the independent sister, like being separated, they don't need a man, they don't need a brother, they don't want a brother. We glorify that. We glorify selling drugs. We glorify committing crimes against one another, slandering each other, talking bad about one another. We glorify all of that. Just on the men's side of it, we glorify shirking our responsibilities in our families, in our communities, to ourselves. Not being, having the ability to be self-accountable for the things that we do. We glorify not rearing our children, not being in our children's lives. We glorify that, we wear that like a badge of honor. We glorify this false image of sagging our pants and engaging in criminal activities, selling drugs, dealing drugs, using drugs, being like alcoholics and just lower forms of life. That's what we're glorifying. And then on the woman's side of it, they're stepping into the angry sister complex. They're like, they're giving that room to breathe. That negative stereotype of the angry black woman. They glorifying horror culture and thought culture. They glorifying that. Or it's like angry black women stereotypes. They glorifying that. They glorifying black women not being able to unite with one another and just, enjoy each other's company. They glorifying that cattiness, talking bad about each other and, being backstabbing each other. So we got to stop that by controlling the type of content that we are releasing. So we got to tell or narrate our own stories. That's why I call my target listening audience my narrators. Next order of business about the Narrator podcast. Like I said earlier, this is a positive space. I don't engage in any negativity, any gossip, any slander, anything retrogressive or detrimental to our community. I do not engage in. I don't promote it. I don't stamp it. I try to lead my audience away from it. Talk against it because I believe, all that negative content is what's destroying our community. I'm not the content police. I feel like everybody got their own voice. They have their own method of how they communicate. Everybody has their own voice and, has a freedom of speech, and we all got a story to tell, and everybody's welcome to tell their own story. But at the same time, make sure the story that you're telling is a positive one. That we got to see some type of light at the end of the tunnel. There's nothing wrong with telling the truth. Stand on truth. Don't just tell on it, stand on it. Definitely. Don't sugarcoat the truth. I believe wholeheartedly in that, but it's a fine line between telling the truth and then just being overtly mean. So I'm anti gossip, I'm anti meanness, definitely anti hate. So this platform is just a safe space. What I do here is I uplift and edify our people by providing and putting out positive frames of reference about our people and our culture, and encouraging the listening audience to, do the same. So that's what the Narrative podcast is all about. It's a positive space for original people. So I never say anything bad about, people within our culture. I do, however, do commentary. I talk about current events and what's going on in the world and how what's going on in the world relates to us. And I will, from time to time, mention a famous person's name because, it's in, whatever, it's breaking news or whatever. But just know, when I'm bringing their name up, it's not to slander them, it's not to bash them, shame them or anything. It's really just to kind of frame up the bigger picture. And when I deliver commentary on my platform, I try to deliver it from the bigger picture perspective. And the bigger picture perspective, usually within our community, especially involving people, celebrities within our community, when they're caught up in something, it's usually, the bigger picture, what's at place, whatever negative thing that they're going through is usually systemic oppression and systematic programming and conditioning. Because while we can't blame everything on, the government or, air quotes, the white man, a very large portion of it can be blamed on systemic oppression and psychological programming and conditioning. Like, we are psychologically programmed and conditioned to, negatively interact with one another. We're programmed and conditioned to perceive ourselves a certain way. We're programmed and conditioned to act in a certain manner. So, like, pretty much all the negative things within our culture goes against our true nature as a people. The psychological programming and conditioning is psychological warfare at its finest. How the powers that shouldn't be have, taken the reins of the media, and they just promote all this negative imagery and just constantly bombarding us with this negative imagery of ourselves in our communities, always showing us downtrodden, always showing us disenfranchised, always showing us living in violence. That psychologically warps us. It's trauma conditioning. And that's what they've done to us. And so anytime, usually when somebody famous within our community involved in something negative, doing something negative, it's a end result of the bigger picture, which is systemic oppression and psychological programming and conditioning. That plays a huge factor into whatever negative thing is going on with a public figure within our community. So that's the only reason why I would bring their name up, is just point that out from that perspective. Now, while this is a place of positivity, it's also a place of truth. If I do feel a famous person is intentionally utilizing their platform to, garner monetary gain from whatever negative antics that they're involved in, then I probably will call said individual out on their shenanigans, because if they know they're a polarizing public figure, and our people as a whole is usually attached to their brand, their image, then, and they're intentionally utilizing their public space to engage in buffoonery to check a bag, then yeah, I will say something about that individual. But other than that, totally positive space. I mind my own business, and I mind the business that's paying me, which is positive content and being positive. So, that's what the Narrative Podcast is all about. Peace, positivity, prosperity, reciprocity, positive frames of reference. That's what it's all about. Next thing you should know, this is a time-sensitive platform. I try not to exceed 1 hour per broadcast. And the purpose behind that is because I'm on all audio platform. That's first and foremost. So, I don't got a camera in front of me. I'm not looking at my listening audience. I'm just talking. And, the quickest way to turn somebody off while you're speaking is just to speak too much, to speak without a point, to speak in a redundant manner. People will tune you out real quick. So I got a limited window to keep you attentive, to entertain you, to educate you, to enlighten you, and to inform you. And I can't do that if I'm just, talking in circles and going on a glorified rant. So I I have to have speaking points, and I have to hit all my speaking points, and I just basically want all my content to resonate with you. I want the delivery of my content to be cohesive, and also to just be impactful. And so, like, I just want to leave you, with something that'll stay with you and something to reflect upon. And I can't do that if I'm boring you to sleep. So I want to try to keep it as interesting as possible, entertaining as possible, and, just straightforward and to the point, making it general and applicable and realistic and down to earth and straightforward. So, that's the purpose of me trying to not exceed 1 hour per broadcast. But, on my audio platform, it's very easy to get, long-winded on certain topics. But for the most part, I try to keep it short and sweet. And then, to finally wrap it up, I refer to my target listening audience. I refer to our people on this platform as original people. I refer to our people as original people for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's historically accurate, and then 2, to unify us as a people. Now, how is it historically accurate to refer to our people as original people? Well, we were and are the original people, on this planet. It was here first. Everything originated from us. We pretty much invented everything. We pretty much built everything. We are original. And a sub point that I want to tack on to that, being here first, something I do every episode. I just want to point out, the false narrative about slavery. Powers that shouldn't be, they really try to push this slave narrative. They want to make slavery the most poignant, relevant part of our existence. So slavery really, it was a real thing. It really did happen. But the false part of it, the generalization of it, is like all of us descended from slavery. Like all of us got to everywhere we're at in the world on a slave boat. Which really doesn't even make sense when you think about it. If we was here first, doesn't it make more sense that we was already inhabiting every corner of the globe? If we was the first people here, if we was the first people to exist ever, doesn't it make more sense that we already existed on all 7 continents? That we got to all those places before slavery was even conceived? I think it does, because it just doesn't stand to reason that a group of people that didn't even exist yet started going all the way to Africa from where they existed and didn't exist till like really, really late in life, to one specific point of origin and getting one specific group of people and enslaving them, kept on going back and back and back and back. And then the people kept letting them do it. And then the people kept helping them do it for hundreds of years. Or does it make more sense that they enslaved the original inhabitants of places they, air quotes, discovered? Especially here in the Americas. Like the vast majority of us, we was already here. We was already there in the continent of Asia. We was already like in all the other 6 other continents, we was already there. Long before, transatlantic slave trade, long before chattel slavery, long before the diaspora. And they just keep on, perpetuating, this false narrative of slavery with these tours, museum tours and boat tours, and they had the slaves over here, and they did this in the slave quarters and they did that in the slave quarters, and nobody ever challenges it. Nobody ever says, how do you know? Where are you getting your information from? Because most of the curators in these museums, most of these people that give these guided tours, they're just regular people off the street, no doctrines, no nothing. They regurgitating some information that the people that hired them told them to say. And the reason why that's such a booming business is because they want to keep on perpetuating, the negative stereotype of the fearful slave. They want to keep us fearful and never ever try to, overthrow the system that's oppressing us. This is why slave movies are like the highest grossing films in Hollywood. They want to keep on, they put all this money, all this budget behind slave movies. They want to have that negative image in our face at a time when we were powerless to do anything about the mistreatment of our people. They want us to physically, just see us physically getting whipped, physically getting emasculated. They want to have that looming image of us in a weakened state. And that's not who we are as a people. It was never weakened. It was never weak. The whole time during slavery, we resisted. From the time it happened to the time it supposedly ended, we fought. There was all kind of uprisings on. In every country you can think about that enslaved our people, there was uprisings. So that's all I want to point out about slavery. Not that I'm a know-it-all or I think I know everything, but I know BS when I hear it. Next point of order, why I call why I refer to our people as original, is to unify us as a people. Because as stated previously, we exist in a lot of different places, and we have that regional differences amongst us. We all hail from different land masses, speak different languages, have different views and perceive life differently. We all have, uniquely different challenges as a people. But we also have a lot of things in common. One being we have large concentrations of carbon, aka melanin. Two, we can all trace our lineage back to the original point of origin. And then three, of course, like all cultures, we all have an unspoken bond. Like we all, we're all going through it with the same oppressor. Like we all got our plight. We have that unspoken bond. I don't know it from, your perspective. I don't know it from the, Haitian perspective. I don't know it from the Jamaican perspective, but I know it. You don't know it from the American black perspective, but you know it. So, like, we all got that in common. We got that unspoken bond. We all have that just, like, nuances within our culture. We get it without ever even, like, experiencing. We just automatically get it. So we're in tune, we're in sync like that. We're all in tune with nature and a whole lot of other just similarities we have. But That's why I refer to our people as original people on my podcast, just to point out, the historical accuracy and to unify us as a people. And it's important to unify us as a people because, everybody else outside of our culture, they just call us black. They call dark-skinned Spanish people black. They call dark-skinned Asian people black. They call dark-skinned, people, anybody possessing high quantities of carbon, aka melanin, black. Like, to anybody else outside of our culture, they just say we black. And we're the only ones that have all these different identifiers. I'm Jamaican, I'm Haitian, I'm Nigerian, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm Black American, FBA, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, we're all, whatever, you want to refer to yourself as, we're all original people. And that's it. So now you're all caught up with the Narrative Podcast, everything you should know about my content and, my mission statement and about what I'm trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to present to you. So, if you're still kind of hazy, if you're still, not quite sure what to make about all this, I'm over 300 episodes. You can go to my episode catalog and download all the previously recorded episodes of the Narrative Podcast, wherever you get your podcast information from. And make sure to, definitely download this episode of the Narrative Podcast, wherever you get your podcast information from when I share it back on the social. So without any further ado, now I'm going to dive on into this weekday episode of the Narrative Podcast. So I have two different format styles. I have a weekday format style and I have a weekend format style. Now my weekend format style is slightly differs from my weekday one. It's a little bit longer and it has a few more sections, but my weekday format style, I only have 2 sections. So being that it's weekday, my mission statement is to share positive frames of reference about our people and our culture, and the positive frames of reference that I share during the weekday come in the form of positive news articles. And the reason why I'm sharing positive news articles about our people and our culture, because, the powers that shouldn't be control the media, and they're trying to control the images that they show us. They're trying to control the audio, everything's negative, negativity in books, literature, periodicals, negativity in the music, negativity in articles, you name it, all forms of media. When it comes to depicting images and likenesses of our people are all tainted with negativity. And it's intentionally done. It's a form of psychological warfare, but for the most part, it's all negative. They want to have us believing nothing positive ever happens in our community. They want to have us believing, that we're not, triumphant in the face of adversity. Overcoming unsurmountable odds, have us believing that we're not trying to make a difference, in the places that we live. So, to balance that out, I'm going to provide positive frames of reference that we are excelling, that we are progressing, that we are making changes in our community and in the world. So without any further ado, the first part, positive news article this evening on the Narrative Podcast, the headline reads, African American. I really hate the term African American, but like that's what the article says. First African American to have full ownership of Berkshire Hathaway real estate. And the sister's name is Tiffany Curry. And obviously she owns a Hathaway, a Berkshire Hathaway company. She owns a Berkshire Hathaway home service company in conjunction with her own company, Tiffany Curry and Company Realtors. They specialize in the greater Houston area. It pairs franchise with boutique services. And there's really nothing more of the article. And if you want to know more about what she has going on, just simply go to tiffanycurryandco.com. And you will see a full list of her services and what she offers. So you can go online to tiffanycurryandco.com. They also has a physical address, 1455 West Loop South, Houston, Texas, 77027. Or you can call at 713-485-4435. And that's Tiffany Curry and Co. So yeah, let's give a warm narrative podcast round of applause for our sister Tiffany Curry in the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Next up, the next positive news article this week on the Narrator Podcast. The headline reads, Black man who once started as a custodian is now a principal in the same school district. And the brother's name is Michael Atkins. He's currently a principal at Hamilton Middle School. So he had a kind of a interesting track. He basically worked his way up from the ranks as a teacher, of course. Started out as a janitor. He was going to school part-time to study business, and he was applying for teaching jobs, but wasn't getting any because he didn't have the proper experience. So what he did find, however, is, he was applicable to be a custodian. And then so once he became a custodian, one of the first schools that he was a custodian at just happened to be principaled, or, the principal just happened to be his second grade elementary school teacher. And she must have knew he was bright from way back then, and wanted to know, what he was up to and how did he, become a custodian, and, and then one thing led to another, and then, she told him about another position, which was a reading parable and then the math parable. So like, math aid, reading aid for the children. That's what he did. That was his first like unofficial teaching job. Then he got after a year of that, he got his tenure and then became a full-on assistant teacher. Then after some years as an assistant teacher, then assistant principal, and now he's finally a principal. So, moral of the story, it's not, all the time what you know, it's who you know. So, that is kind of how you get in spaces you want to be in. You have to strike up an acquaintance. You got to know people. You got to network with people, as they say. And that's how he basically is a principal now, is through his networking skills. He built a strong base before rising to the ranks of the teaching world, which is a very hard thing to do. Like, salute and I commend anybody who is an educator or has been an educator in the past. It's not an easy job, like, especially with our kids in our community. Not saying our children are any worse than anybody else's, but we got some bad little MOFs. But yeah, so that's really all the article says. Now, his story is a lot more complex than that, but of course, to keep in stride with my invisible time limit I set for myself, I just took bulleted points, the highlights of it, and presented you with that. And it's a real good article. It's very positive. He triumphed in the face of adversity. He didn't have the necessary tools that he needed to start out on the journey he set for himself, but he found a way, he stuck to it, and now, he's the HNIC. That's just what I think about when I hear that story. What is that movie, Lean On Me? Oh, Crazy Joe. Contrary to what you think, I am the... Wow, that was a real iconic movie. But anyway, getting off track. Please join me in a Warm Narrative podcast round of applause for our brother, Michael Atkins. And then, of course, it's always refreshing to hear about, educators in our community, as we need more teachers to teach our children, because they're not going to teach our children right. They're not going to teach them, they're not going to relate to them. They're not going to set them up to succeed. Not saying, everybody outside of our culture is bad. There's many successful people within our community that had, white educators and other people outside of our culture, and they went on to do fantastic things in their lives. But for the most part, we need our own schools, we need our own educators, and, we need our own. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it there. You can take it how you want to, but we definitely need our own. But shout out and salute that brother for making a difference, making an impact. So next article on this weekday edition of the Narrative Podcast, the headline reads, Group of black farmers secure $1.25 million in funding to acquire land for business expansion, pardon me. And the name of their business that they expanded is called the Ujamaa Farmer Collective in West Sacramento, California. And Ujamaa should sound very familiar because it is the fourth principle of Kwanzaa. And it has to do with cooperative economy, shared wealth and work, economic self-reliance, obligation, and of generosity. So that's the entire premise behind the farm. It was founded by some brothers, Nelson Hawkins, Nathan Brown, and Keith Hudson. Their goal is to elevate everyone's potential. To find out more, visit ujamaacollective.com. You can also call them at 240-515-8558. Or if you have direct questions, you can go to Ujamaa Farming Co-op at gmail.com. Pardon me. Join me to give these brothers a warm narrative podcast round of applause for Ujamaa Farms. And last but certainly most definitely not least, final positive news article of the evening. Save the best for last. The headline reads, after 11 years in prison, he opens the first black-owned business in Brooklyn Heights, New York City. And the brother's name is Derek Falcone. I believe it's Falcone. It might just be Falcon, but I'm thinking it's Falcone. The name of his business is called Cloudy Donuts. .co, and it's very unique in nature because it's completely all the donuts there are vegan. So the brother, he was incarcerated for 11 years. They said he got charged with bank fraud and identity theft. I had to actually Google what he went to jail for. It didn't say it in none of the articles that he spoke about. I guess he don't really live in the past and backtrack how he got to prison, but it's definitely a good positive story to our brothers that have been incarcerated, that you can come home and make a good life for yourself. You don't have to revert back to the street, revert back to your old ways to get ahead. This brother found a way. And then before the donut company, he actually owned his own brunch spot called Homemade. So yeah, what inspired him to do the donut spot was there was a vegan spot next to his brunch spot. He used to go over there, close. I'm guessing it was across the street or something. So his first business was in New Jersey. The brunch spot was in New Jersey, and then he opened his first donut spot there too. But he's not. He got the article says he's located in New York now. So like if you want to know more about his donut spot, just head on over to cloudydonut.com. And then if you're living in New York City, you can go to visit them at 14 Columbia Place, Brooklyn, New York, 11201. Telephone number 347 463 9628. The hours are from Friday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Sunday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then their second address in New York City is 209 Mott Street, New York, New York, 10012. Telephone number 347 463 9628. And the hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, and 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. So you probably want to go to the New York one, because the Brooklyn one, Shane, they're closing early in Brooklyn, Shane. They're closing early in Brooklyn, Shane. What up? What up? Know what I mean? All right. So that's it for the positive news articles this week on the Narrator Podcast. And now on into my next section. This section is my current event section. Current topics of the day section, and this section I refer to as my speaking point section. So I got a couple topics I want to discuss this evening. Now normally when I don't have anything trending in the news to talk about, I just bring up a social commentary. If I don't have anything, in the news that I want to comment on or think I think deserves commentary on, I just, kind of do a PSA type deal. Well, tonight's going to be a first. I'm going to actually do both. So, I'm going to talk about something that happened in the news recently, and then I'm also going to just put out a public service message. My PSAs usually are just things I observe in our community that we need to work on as a people. And by we, I'm meaning myself as well, because I am an original man. So yeah. Want to get on up into it, man. All right, this was not easy at all. My heart is going out to this brother. He's going through it big time right now. Big pharma, these darn doctors, they are just wicked and diabolical. So unless you've been living under a rock, recently a brother by the name of Fernando Cluster is suing his physician for a botched surgery. So his complaint was filed in DeKalb County, Georgia. He went to Emory Healthcare Hospital in September of 22. for brain hemorrhage. Inner cerebral brain hemorrhage, and what that just basically means was his brain was bleeding, and so this treatment was removing half of his skull to stop the bleeding. So, they did that. They removed half his skull and then sent him home for like about 2 months. Came back to get the other half of his skull, but it wasn't there. So they released a statement that basically said, they had fragments of it, but they didn't know if it was his or not. They done charged this man like over $19,000 in hospital bills. And on top of that, he got an infection because they didn't have, the other half of his skull right away. And so they had to give him like he got the infection because they had to give him a calisthenic skull, a plastic skull, because they didn't have his original one. Like if they ain't the bone-headed, pardon the pun, if they ain't the most bone-headed, like incompetent physicians in the world, like, and then they got the audacity to say allegations. How you allegedly not have a part of your skull? Like, you can't even say allegedly in this case. They're saying he alleged. He didn't have half of his skull. It ain't no allegation. It's a fact. He didn't have half of his skull. When he went in for surgery, he had his whole skull. After he left your hospital, he only had half. So, moral of the story is, my people, original people, when you go to these devils, and I'm saying devils, not saying all Caucasian people are devils, but these damn devils in these hospitals, make sure like you have somebody go with you, a family member, somebody, because, it's big business harvesting our bodies. Like, pretty much for us to go to a hospital, it's almost an immediate death sentence. Because that's like basically what modern medicine, Western medicine is anyway. Like, they don't go to college to cure anything, medical school. They go to treat symptoms. So they make more money the longer you stay in the hospital. And make even more money if you pass away in the hospital, especially if you're a original person, because they want to harvest your melanin. And our melanin is in everything. It's in, household cleaning products. It's in cosmetics. It's in sunscreen. It's stuff that keeps them, shielded from the sun. Whereas we, original people, we don't need any, because our magical stuff does it for us. Keeps all the harmful stuff out of there. The only thing we probably need is some coconut oil. We don't need no SPF whatever. But yeah, man, they done took this brother's skull, a piece of his head, and ain't even apologized. Just the sheer fact he actually has to file a lawsuit. Like, he has to go through all this legal tape. And they messed up. He had a whole skull when he went into your hospital. And then you're going to send him home with half his head intact. Like, if they don't just, like beat all the man. They man, the level of like diabolical they had. What brother Jim Kelly say? They come straight out of a comic book. That is just comic book evil. Like, what in the entire hell? So, he need, like, they're only suing for, you know, the medical bills that they've been charged with, and they want, I'm guessing, like, something like close to $1 million for pain and suffering. Like, they need more than that. I think you should get like 4 or 5 in punitive damage, like 2 or 3 million punitive damage. Because what, like, I can't even fathom that. Like, your head, like literally on your shoulders. Wow, you take a piece of somebody's skull. Don't say sorry. Don't say we messed up. Our bad. Like nothing. Wow. That is just... I hope that place gets shut down, man. If they're that damn insensitive, they don't need to be practicing medicine. But that's all I want to touch on. The story is much more detailed than that. Like I said, I'm just giving you the highlights of it to, you know, stay in stride with my time limit I set for myself. And then the next thing I want to talk about is, you know, PSA about our people. We need to stop hopping on every single trend that comes out. It's like we hop on every single trend that comes out. And I'm not hating on some of these TikTok challenges and, you know, but sometimes it just makes you look idiotic and foolish when you know, hop on a trend and like it's not for you. So the latest trend is not for us. So it's like an audio clip circulating. And of course, like everybody is hopping on it, but it's a stifling amount of people within our community hopping on this challenge. And it's like the demure challenge. And it's like an audio clip circulating around. See how I do X, Y, and Z. Very intentional, very demure. Or I think it's like go to work. See how I go to work? Something demure. I don't know. I don't listen to it. It sounded messed up. Like, that's just the way my brain is wired. I just automatically reject BS. Like I just on a subconscious level rejected it. Just on a subconscious level, I just said, like every time I see it in my timeline, I delete it. Not interested. And not because it's like a homosexual dude. Not because the voice is like nasally and annoying. It's because there's no value behind it. It's not even really entertaining. You see what I'm saying? Like, we just rush to hop on trends, to be hopping on trends, to just be online doing stuff. And our people, everything we've gone through as a people, the last thing we need to be doing is just like hopping on trends just because it's trending. We need to be intentional. We need to be direct. Whatever we're like, online, we need our message clear. Whatever the message is. If you want to have fun, have fun. I'm not anti having fun. You need to have fun. You need to laugh. Like, laughter is the best form of medicine. It truly, truly is. Like, laughing, smiling, all that keeps you younger and healthier, and your mental health, your mental mind state. So I'm all for entertainment. I'm all for fun. But I'm also for having dignity. I'm also for having decorum and dignity and pride about yourself. And there's nothing prideful than just being a follower. And that's what a lot of us are doing online. We're just following trends. We're the trendsetters. We are the trendsetters. We're the curators of cool. We shouldn't be following no damn trend. Like, I can't even name all the idiotic things that our people have succumbed to following trends. Like, it was like a few summers ago, it was the Ghetto Olympics. You know how many of us died doing the egg crate challenge, got unalived doing the egg crate challenge. And then there was that challenge where we was setting ourselves on fire, to set yourself on fire challenge. And then some simpler ones. It's not dangerous, but just idiotic in nature. Like, it was one where people were sitting hangers on top of their heads. Bruh, for real? A hanger on top of your head. That's what you're doing. Like, and then it was the mannequin challenge, and then it was the don't get caught lacking challenge, and just so much stuff that's toxic to our community and just makes us look so ridiculous. But this one is the new one up there, because demure is just like the way the person was saying it. The way the person, the narrator that was saying it, it was like like he was saying it like it's a fashion statement. Like, oh, it's just so in vogue, or so new wave, or nouveau, or whatever. That's how he was saying it, but that's not what demure means. Demure is a legal term. It means you object to something. So what are you objecting to? Are you objecting to go to work? But like everybody in our community, see, I'm doing this. This is so demure, and that's not even what demure means. We just blindly following trends is what I'm getting at. We need to stop blindly following trends, because we blindly following trends to our demise, our social demise, our economic demise, our spiritual demise, our intellectual demise. We're not even just online cognitively thinking, critically thinking. We just going with the flow. Just because it look cool and it sound cool, we're going with it. Well, that's it and that's all. So I'm very demure about the type of content that we're putting out lately. And I hope you will be demure enough to, not fall for the okie doke and not fall for every single trend that comes out, because every single trend that comes out is not for us. It's not okay. It's not okay. Just don't hop on the trend bandwagon. Like, I get it, have fun on the internet. Like, have fun. It's cool to have fun. Have fun with your life, Nobody's in the seat to morally judge anybody, but also just while you're having fun, take your common sense with you. Make it make sense. Whatever you're doing. Well, that's it and that's all. Thanks for listening. Join me later on this week, probably most likely either tomorrow or Friday, for another weekday edition of the Narrator Podcast. And definitely join me this weekend for a full edition of the Narrator Podcast, wherever you get your podcast information from. To stay up to date with the latest episodes of the Narrator Podcast, follow me on YouTube and X. You want to follow me on those two mediums because this platform that I'm currently broadcasting from automatically uploads to YouTube and X. So to stay up to date with the newest episode of the Narrative Podcast on YouTube, you want to subscribe to my YouTube viewer page, Halsey Allen, and hit the subscribe button, notification button, all. And then you also want to follow me on X, formerly Twitter. I don't know how their notifications on X is, but you also want to follow me there. Not too proficient with X. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I've been trying to be proficient with them since there was Twitter. I think I'm kind of getting a little traction, but I don't know. Still not really getting the concept behind it, but anyway. And the way you support the Narrative Podcast is to download episodes of the Narrative Podcast. Download, this episode and all previously recorded episodes of the Narrative Podcast. You can also hit the heart-shaped like button. You can also leave me a comment wherever you see the link. After you click on the link, leave me a comment. They got a comment box on it, and then also share it back to, whatever your preferred platform is. Whatever platform you on, just share the link to the Narrative Podcast. My only thing I would say for the people that have visual platforms is like, you would probably want to shout out the Narrative Podcast when you're sharing on the visual one, like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. You probably want to like that. If you want to support, that'll work great. So the best place to do all those options I just named is X. Because while you can follow me on YouTube, you would just click on my the episode. It won't have all those options. It won't have the download option. It won't have the share option. Well, it'll have the share option, of course. Anybody that ever been on YouTube know you can share whatever, wherever. But the best place to download episodes of the Narrative Podcast would be my X channel, and that's Halsey Allen on X. I stay good at Halsey Allen, as a matter of fact. And then, click the download button. Click the little heart-shaped like button. And then share it to whatever perspective, platform that you like. But whatever you do, if you don't do all those other options, click the download button, the little arrow pointing down. That helps me the most to keep this thing going. The next thing I want to plug is my personal poetry blog on blogger.com. It's called Hallzies Poetry Corner. And the tagline for Hallzies Poetry Corner is poetry with a passion, poetry for all occasions. And when you read one of my poems, you will find out exactly why. So backing up a bit, the poems featured on Halsey's Poetry Corner is basically a collection of my poetry. I write poems and blog them on Blogger, and the address to it is www.mrhalsiesblogs.com. And the unique thing about my poems featured on that medium is that, you know, they're so diverse. They range from a wide array of topics, and they're totally relatable. Anybody that likes reading poetry, they can, you know, they can immerse themselves in one of my pieces. They can identify, you know, with a portion of it or the entire poem. You know, they can see a portion of themselves, or like they can see their entire life. You're guaranteed to be like, oh, that's so me on one of my poems. Even that one that's more unique than that is that I wrote all those poems in the moment. I spontaneously wrote them. I didn't contemplate on the topic, the subject matter, what I was going to write about, what I was going to title each piece after finishing them. I just wrote and just posted it. You know, that's a very rare talent. Like, not a whole lot of people got that. I got that. It shocks me sometimes. I'm like, where did that come from after I'm done writing? Now, I do have like quite a few pieces for our community, original people community, but for the most part, it's for everybody. Anybody that likes to read poetry, you know, you're definitely going to love reading the poems posted on that blog. And link again is www.mrhalsiesblogs.com, and the name of my poetry blog is called Halsey's Poetry Corner. The tagline for it is Halsey's Poetry Corner, poetry with a passion, poetry for all occasions. And when you read the poems featured on my poetry blog, you'll know that they live up to that tagline, because it's just like they're so versatile and just, you know, so relatable. So, you know, you're just not going to get over like how intentional they are and how specific they are, but that the way I wrote them, they were just like in the spur of the moment, but they're just intentional and, you know, direct. You would just think, you know, I pre-wrote them or I drafted them, and I didn't do that. I just, you know, it just came to my mind and I put it up there. So just go check that out. Support Halsey's Poetry Corner. And you can support by going to the link, www.mrhalsiesblogs.com, and sharing either the link to my poetry blog or a poem featured on Halsey's Poetry Corner across all platforms. And then you can also hit the little heart-shaped like button, and then leave me a comment. Please leave me a comment. Now, you might get a little notice saying, you know, the network ain't secure or whatever, but ain't nobody trying to get your information. Go and check them poems out. Yeah, if you're super leery, just use a VPN. But go support that. Go check out Halsey's Poetry Corner today. And then last but not least, support my book of poetry that I wrote. I wrote a book of poetry called The Black Card. And currently it's only available on one medium, and that's poetizer.com. And poetizer.com has a virtual online bookstore for the members of that community. So what you want to do is go to poetizer.com and go to their virtual online bookstore and look for my title, The Black Card. And The Black Card, what that is a 30-page book of poetry. And I titled it because it's an all-encompassing look at, who we are as a people. It's a snapshot of us. It's a reflective piece. 30 poems, kind of reflective of who we are as a people. Everything that we encounter, everything we go through, positive and negative. Just, a whole lot of nuances of our culture. Basically a day in the life of / survival card. It'll make a good coffee table read. It'll make a good gift. It'll make a good, leisurely, just a nice vacation book if you want to travel with it. But you would definitely like it. It has an ultra sleek design. Go get it today. Now, again, it's on poetizer.com, and if you're unfamiliar with Poetizer is just basically a community for novice writers, people that aren't really writing at the professional level yet. They offer a real cost-effective way for you to pursue your dreams of becoming a writer by offering, self-publishing services. So basically it's a community of writers for all genres of writing. People to write novels, short stories, essays. But the main genre of writing they cater to is obviously poetry. It's in the name, Poetizer. And basically, it's an open forum to anybody in that community to share their work and then assemble their work into a book and, write a book. And so that's precisely what I did, is I wrote a book, and it's available on poetizer.com inside their virtual online bookstore. And so do yourself a huge favor, go check that out. The Black Card is what it's called. Go to poetizer.com and purchase my book of poetry, The Black Card, or get your Black Card revoked. So that's it and that's all. Join me later on this week for another episode of the Narrator Podcast, and this weekend for another full edition of the Narrator Podcast. I'm Halsey Allen, and I'm changing the narrative one episode at a time. I'm asking you to help me change the narrative by becoming a narrator. And while I'm changing the narrative one episode at a time, as a narrator, you can help me change the narrative by changing the narrative one social media post at a time. Until next time, Halsey Allen in the Narrator Podcast signing off. And it's like that.
Listening to the Narrative Podcast with Halsey Allen. The Narrative Podcast is changing the narrative one episode at a time.